My name is David, and at 34 years old, I never thought I would be the villain in my family story. As the reliable one in my large family of 17 relatives, I was always the go-to guy for planning our annual Christmas vacation. This year was supposed to be special, a luxury mountain getaway in Vermont that I had saved all year for, until I discovered the group chat. The one with everyone but me, the one where they planned to leave me behind while still expecting me to pay $16,800. Before I tell you what happened, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had to stand up for yourself against your own family. I grew up in a small town outside of Detroit, Michigan, as the oldest of 4 siblings. Our family was decidedly middle class, with my dad Robert working at an automotive plant, and my mom Susan teaching at the local elementary school. My siblings James, Amanda, and Michael were all within 6 years of me, making us a tight-knit bunch growing up. We struggled financially at times, but there was always love in our home. When I turned 18, I knew college would be largely on my shoulders. I applied for every scholarship possible and still worked 30 hours a week at a local computer repair shop while studying computer science. Those 4 years taught me independence and financial responsibility in ways my siblings never had to learn. After graduating, I caught what many would call a lucky break. A tech startup in Boston recruited me, and within 3 years, the company exploded in growth. I went from being a junior developer to leading a team of 15 by the time I was 28. My salary quadrupled, and the stock options I received turned into substantial wealth when the company went public. Meanwhile, back home, things remained much the same. My parents continued their modest careers. James tried college but dropped out to pursue various entrepreneurial ventures that never quite took off. Amanda became a teacher like Mom, but struggled with the low salary. Michael, the baby of the family, was still finishing his degree when my career took off. The shift in our family dynamic was subtle at first. When James needed money to launch his 3rd business attempt, I sent him $10,000. When Amanda had car trouble and no savings, I bought her a new Honda. When my parents mentioned wanting to see Europe for their 30th anniversary but couldn't afford it, I surprised them with fully paid tickets and accommodations. I never flaunted my success, but I enjoyed being able to help. It made me feel connected to them, despite living hundreds of miles away. What I didn't realize was that I was slowly shifting from being their son and brother to becoming their safety net. The Christmas vacation tradition started 6 years ago, shortly after my grandmother passed away. The family seemed fragmented by grief, and I suggested a week together might help us heal. I rented a cabin in northern Michigan, nothing fancy, but it brought us together in a way we hadn't been in years. The following year, I upgraded us to a Colorado ski resort. The year after that, a beach house in Florida. Then came a wine country estate in California. Each year, the accommodations became more luxurious, and the guest list expanded beyond my immediate family to include aunts, uncles, and cousins. And each year, my financial contribution grew. Initially, everyone pitched in what they could. By last year, I was covering 70% of all expenses. No one explicitly asked this of me, but it became an unspoken expectation. I told myself I was creating memories and traditions, especially after my grandfather passed away last Christmas. He had always emphasized the importance of family unity, and these trips felt like honoring his memory. This year was set to be our biggest gathering yet, a luxury mountain resort in Vermont, with private cabins, a central lodge, skiing, snowboarding, spa treatments, and all the amenities anyone could want. The total cost was $21,000 for the week, and I had offered to cover $16,800 of it. The remaining amount would be split among the 17 family members attending, making their individual contributions minimal. I began planning 4 months in advance. September may seem early to organize a Christmas trip, but premium accommodations in Vermont book up quickly for the holiday season. I created a dedicated savings fund and made monthly deposits to ensure I could cover my portion without stress. During our initial family Zoom call to discuss the trip, everyone seemed genuinely excited and appreciative. My mom teared up when she saw photos of the resort, saying it looked like something from a movie. My sister Amanda talked about how much her kids would love learning to ski. Uncle Bill and Aunt Melissa, who had joined our Christmas traditions 3 years ago, praised my thoughtfulness and planning skills. In addition to funding most of the trip, I had purchased special gifts for everyone. For my parents, I found vintage records they had lost during a basement flood years ago. For my siblings, I selected items that reflected our shared childhood memories. For my nieces and nephews, I bought high-quality winter gear they would need for the mountain activities. These gifts were meant to be distributed during our time at the resort, adding another layer to the holiday celebration. As November arrived, I sent weekly updates about the resort amenities, area attractions, and reminders about what to pack. I created a shared document with all the reservation details, suggested activities, and a rough daily schedule to make sure everyone could participate in the things that interested them most. Looking back, I realize my enthusiasm may have come across as controlling, but at the time, I was simply excited to create the perfect family holiday. What I couldn't see then was that my role had been reduced to financial provider and logistical coordinator. My actual presence had somehow become secondary to what I could offer materially. The cracks in this dynamic were about to become glaringly obvious. The first hint that something was off came about 3 weeks before our scheduled departure. We had agreed that we would all leave on December 22nd at 9 a.m., arriving at the resort by mid-afternoon. This would give us time to settle in before starting festivities that evening. During a phone call with my sister Amanda, I casually mentioned the drive up. "So are we still planning to carpool? I can rent an SUV if we need more space for luggage." There was a brief pause before she answered. "Oh, I think Mom and Dad are taking me and the kids in their car. Have you asked James? He might have room." Something in her tone seemed off, but I brushed it aside. When I called James later that day, he gave a similarly vague response. "I think the cars are all figured out already. Don't worry about it." When I pressed for details, asking who would be in each vehicle, he quickly changed the subject to ask about the resort's Wi-Fi capabilities for his work calls. I provided the information, momentarily distracted from my question about transportation arrangements. A few days later, I called my parents to discuss packing recommendations. "Do we need to bring our own ski equipment, or should we plan to rent at the lodge?" I asked. My father cleared his throat. "Whatever you prefer, son. Most of us will probably rent." "Most of us? Who is bringing their own gear?" My mother jumped in. "Oh, I think your cousin Alex mentioned having his own snowboard. David, did I tell you about the new cookie recipe I want to try for Christmas Eve?" Again, the subject was changed before I could dig deeper. These conversational redirections happened so smoothly that I barely noticed them at the time. A week later, I was on a video call with my cousin Sarah, discussing her recent engagement, when she mentioned something that caught my attention. "I'm so excited for the pre-trip breakfast," she said. "It will be nice to see everyone before the long drive." "What pre-trip breakfast?" I asked. Her eyes widened slightly. "Oh, I thought you knew. Just a little gathering at Uncle Bill's house before we leave." She quickly added, "It's nothing special, just coffee and donuts." "When is this happening?" "I think around 7, she said, suddenly seeming uncomfortable. "You should ask your mom." I might have the time wrong. When I called my mother later, she dismissed it as a casual meetup that I could skip since I would be driving from Boston. "You have a much longer journey, dear. No need to come all the way to Bill's first. We can all meet directly at the resort." 2 weeks before the trip, we had a family dinner at my brother James' apartment since I was in town for a business meeting. The conversation flowed normally until I walked in from taking a phone call. The sudden silence was palpable, like I had interrupted something important. My cousin Alex looked away, while my Aunt Melissa began talking loudly about her new haircut. Later that evening, I spotted Uncle Bill reviewing what looked like an itinerary on his tablet. When I approached, he quickly switched screens. "Just checking the weather forecast," he said, though I distinctly saw what looked like a schedule with times and activities. Throughout the dinner, my mother avoided eye contact whenever I brought up specific details about our departure. When I asked if 9 a.m. was still the plan, she nodded vaguely and said, "Around then, yes." As people were leaving, I overheard my brother Michael on the phone in the hallway. "He doesn't know yet," he said quietly. "We're still figuring out how to handle it." My stomach tightened, but I convinced myself they must be planning some sort of surprise for me. Perhaps a thank you gift or special activity? Still, a sense of unease lingered. Over the next few days, I made several attempts to get more involved in the transportation planning. I offered to coordinate drivers, passengers, and luggage distribution to ensure everything would run smoothly. Each time, my offers were politely but firmly declined. "It's all taken care of," my father insisted. "Just focus on getting yourself to Vermont. Don't worry about it," James repeated when I called him. "Everyone knows what they're doing." The most telling comment came from my Aunt Melissa during a family group text about the trip. When I suggested creating a transportation spreadsheet to make sure no one was left behind, she responded, "It's better if you just handle the payment part, David. We can manage the logistics." That statement stung, but I still wasn't seeing the full picture. I attributed their behavior to holiday stress, or perhaps wanting to reduce my workload since I was contributing financially. Looking back, I should have recognized the dismissive tone and the way they compartmentalized my role to just the payment part. With 3 days left before our departure, I made one last attempt at clarity. I hosted a dinner at my apartment for family members who lived nearby, hoping to finalize all the details. Throughout the evening, conversation about the trip remained frustratingly vague. Every specific question I asked about timing, carpooling arrangements, or the first day's schedule was met with generalities and subject changes. As everyone was leaving, I pulled my brother Michael aside. "Is there something going on that I should know about?" I asked directly. He looked uncomfortable, glancing toward the others. "What do you mean?" "Everyone gets weird whenever I ask about the exact departure plans. If something's changed, just tell me." He patted my shoulder awkwardly. "Everything's fine, bro. You're overthinking it. We're all just excited for the trip." I nodded, not entirely convinced, but willing to let it go. After all, in less than 72 hours, we would all be enjoying the luxurious mountain resort I had carefully selected and largely paid for. Whatever miscommunication was happening would surely be resolved by then. I had no idea that the truth was far worse than any miscommunication. The night before our scheduled departure, I was finalizing my packing when my phone died. I remembered that my brother James had left his tablet at my apartment after the dinner 3 days earlier. I grabbed it to look up a weather forecast for Vermont, wanting to make sure I packed appropriately for the conditions. When I opened the tablet, it was already logged into his messaging apps. I wouldn't normally snoop, but a group chat titled "Christmas Trip, Real Planning" immediately caught my eye. The notification showed recent activity, with dozens of unread messages. My curiosity turned to confusion, then to dawning horror as I realized the chat included every single family member who was going on the trip except for me. My hands trembled as I scrolled up, discovering that this separate planning group had been active for over 3 months. While I had been sending updates, fielding questions, and organizing what I thought were our shared plans, they had been coordinating completely different arrangements behind my back. The first message that hit me like a physical blow was from my father. "David doesn't need to know about the early departure. He'd just complain about having to rush or change his schedule. We'll tell him 9, and we can all leave at 5. He can just meet us there later." My sister Amanda had replied, "He's so controlling about schedules anyway. This will be more fun without him micromanaging every minute. We can actually relax for once." The conversation continued with my cousin Alex adding, "As long as he pays his part, does it matter if he's there the whole time? I mean, the reservation is in his name, but once we're checked in, it doesn't really matter when he arrives." I felt physically ill as I continued reading. They had meticulously planned to leave 4 hours earlier than they told me, deliberately arranging 4 vehicles with precisely enough seats for everyone except me. My Aunt Melissa had even created a seating chart, which she shared with the group along with the comment, "This ensures there's no awkward moment where someone offers David a ride." They had mapped out 3 full days of activities labeled as David Free Time, scheduling all the most appealing excursions and experiences during this period. There were messages about how much more relaxing the first days would be without my constant itinerary updates and need to make sure everyone is having the perfect time. My brother Michael had offered a weak defense at one point. "Guys, don't you think this is kind of harsh? David is paying for most of this trip," but my Uncle Rick had shut him down. "That's exactly the point, Michael. We need to keep the golden goose happy enough to keep paying, but that doesn't mean we have to have him hovering over us the entire time. 3 days without him, 4 days with him, It's a perfect balance. The conversation continued with detailed plans about how to handle it if I discovered their deception. My mother suggested they could claim there was a miscommunication about the departure time. My brother James thought they could say it was a last-minute change that they tried to tell me about. But the messages that truly gutted me were the jokes. My sister Amanda sharing, "Maybe we should start a drinking game for the days David is there. One shot every time he asks if everyone is having fun." My cousin Sarah adding, "2 shots when he reminds us how much the trip cost." My father responding, "We'd all be drunk by noon." And finally, the clear confirmation that none of this was a misunderstanding or joke taken too far. A message from my Aunt Melissa from just 2 days ago. "Remember everyone, as far as David knows, we're all leaving at 9 a.m. Not a word about the real plan. He's still covering the $16,800 for the reservation, so let's make sure he doesn't have any reason to change his mind. We can all deal with a few days of his obsession with family time, considering what we're getting out of this." I sat on my couch, physically shaking, the tablet still in my hands. I couldn't process the level of betrayal I was experiencing. These were the people I had prioritized above everything, the ones I had supported financially and emotionally for years, the family I had been so excited to create a magical Christmas experience for. My apartment suddenly felt too empty and too full at the same time. In the corner stood the stack of carefully wrapped gifts I had purchased for each family member. On my dining table were printed copies of the resort brochures and activity guides I had planned to distribute upon arrival. My suitcase lay open on the floor, filled with cold weather gear for a trip I now realized I was never fully included in. I had been invited along as an afterthought, a necessary appendage because my name was on the reservation and my credit card had paid for it, not because they valued my presence or wanted to share the holiday with me. I tried to sleep that night but couldn't. My mind raced with questions and conflicting emotions. Should I confront them? Should I pretend I never saw the messages? Should I still go on the trip and suffer through their false smiles, knowing what they really thought of me? One question kept returning. What would happen if I simply didn't pay? Sleep eluded me entirely that night. I sat on my living room couch, alternating between rereading the devastating group chat messages and staring blankly at the wall. Each time I revisited the conversations, new painful details emerged that I had missed in my initial shock. As the night progressed, my mind began cataloging all the times I had stepped up for my family financially. The memories came in relentless waves. 3 years ago, when my sister Amanda called me in tears because her car had broken down and she had no savings to replace it. The $10,000 I sent her without hesitation for a new Honda, telling her to consider it an early Christmas gift when she insisted on repaying me. The 6 months I covered my brother James' rent when his business venture failed and he was too depressed to look for a job. Not just the $3,000 monthly payments, but the additional $1,000 I sent for living expenses so he wouldn't have to move back home. The European vacation I arranged for my parents' 30th wedding anniversary, 2 weeks touring Italy, France, and Spain that cost me nearly $20,000. My mother had mentioned once, years earlier, that she dreamed of seeing Europe before she turned 60. I made that dream come true without being asked. The $5,000 I contributed toward my cousin Sarah's wedding last year when her budget fell short. The tuition assistance I provided to help my youngest brother Michael complete his degree without the crushing student loans I had faced. The list went on and on. Birthday gifts, emergency assistance, investments in family business ideas, always given freely, without expectation of repayment, because I believed in taking care of the people you love when you have the means to do so. But as I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by the gifts I had purchased for these same people, I was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Generosity freely given can still create unhealthy dynamics. In trying to help my family, had I inadvertently trained them to see me as a resource rather than a person, my initial impulse was to confront them immediately through the group chat. I drafted several scathing messages on my phone, pouring out my hurt and anger. I typed and deleted, never quite finding the right words to express the depth of my betrayal. As my rational mind slowly regained control, I realized that an emotional outburst would only give them the upper hand. They would apologize profusely, make excuses, claim it was all a misunderstanding or a joke taken too far. And somehow, I would end up being positioned as the overreacting villain, too sensitive, unable to take a joke. No, this situation called for something more consequential than angry words. It required action that would make them understand exactly what they were losing by treating me this way. I opened my email and searched for the booking confirmation from the Vermont resort. I had received it months ago when I first made the reservation. The details confirmed what I already knew. The entire booking, 5 luxury cabins for 7 nights, was in my name and on my credit card. A deposit had been paid, but the full payment of $16,800 would be processed upon check-in. The reservation included a detailed cancellation policy. If canceled more than 30 days before arrival, the deposit would be fully refunded. Within 30 days, the deposit would be forfeited, but cancellations within 48 hours of arrival would result in a 50% charge of the total booking. I checked the time. It was just after midnight. Our check-in was scheduled for 3 p.m. the following day, putting me well within the 48-hour window. If I canceled now, I would lose $8,400, half the total cost. I continued reading the policy details and discovered an unexpected clause. If cancellation was due to weather emergencies, illness, or other documented extenuating circumstances, the resort would consider full refunds on a case-by-case basis. I wondered if my entire family secretly planning to exclude me while still expecting me to pay would qualify as an extenuating circumstance. It was worth finding out. I picked up my phone and took screenshots of the most damning messages from the group chat, making sure to capture the ones that explicitly mentioned using me for my money and planning to arrive without me. Then I called the resort's 24-hour customer service line. The representative who answered was initially skeptical of my request for a full refund within the 48-hour cancellation window. But as I calmly explained the situation and offered to email the screenshots as evidence, her tone shifted from professional rigidity to genuine sympathy. "Let me speak with my manager," she said. "This is definitely an unusual circumstance." While on hold, I calculated exactly what my family members would lose without my contribution. They had collectively put in only $4,200, divided among 17 people. My $16,800 made up the bulk of the $21,000 total. Without my payment, they would arrive at a luxury resort with less than a quarter of the amount needed for check-in. The customer service representative returned to the line. "Mr. Walker, my manager has reviewed your situation and approved a full refund given the circumstances. We'll process this right away and send you a confirmation email." Relief washed over me. "Thank you for understanding. I appreciate it." "Of course. And if you're still interested in getting away for the holidays, we do have a single occupancy cabin available at our sister property in New Hampshire. It's smaller than what you had booked, but quite charming." I considered it briefly but declined. "I think I need something completely different this year." After hanging up, I sat back and tried to imagine the scene that would unfold tomorrow. My family arriving at the resort, smug in their deception, only to discover there was no reservation. The panic as they realized I had canceled everything. The scramble to find alternative accommodations during one of the busiest holiday weeks of the year in a popular ski destination. The thought brought me a brief flash of satisfaction, followed immediately by guilt. Was I being petty? Vindictive? Would my grandfather be disappointed in my response to this situation? I found myself staring at a framed photo from last Christmas. All of us gathered around the fireplace at the California wine country estate. Everyone smiling, my arm around my mother, my father's hand on my shoulder. The picture of a loving, united family. The image that had once brought me comfort now seemed like a cruel illusion. How many of those smiles were genuine? How many were calculated performances from people who valued my wallet more than my company? In that moment, something shifted inside me. I had spent years prioritizing family harmony above my own dignity. I had conflated financial support with love, generosity with self-respect. But real love doesn't require you to be used. Real family doesn't exclude you while taking your money. It was time to value myself enough to establish boundaries. to recognize that enabling disrespect wasn't helping anyone, including the family members who had come to see such behavior as acceptable. I opened my laptop and began searching for flights. If I wasn't going to Vermont, I could go anywhere. The world was suddenly open with possibilities. After browsing options for an hour, I booked a ticket to Hawaii, departing the following evening. A week of sunshine and solitude seemed like exactly what I needed to process everything and decide on my path forward. Next, I made a donation to the Alzheimer's Association, my grandfather's chosen charity after my grandmother's diagnosis years ago. $5,000 that would have gone toward luxury accommodations for people who didn't appreciate me would instead fund research and support services in his memory. The symmetry felt right. With these decisions made, I turned off notifications from all family members on my phone, not blocking them completely, but ensuring I wouldn't be interrupted by their messages until I was ready to engage. Then I powered down my phone entirely, something I rarely did. In the sudden silence of my apartment, I felt an unexpected lightness. The weight of expectations and obligation had been lifted. For the first time in years, I was making choices based solely on what I wanted and needed, not on maintaining a family dynamic that had become increasingly toxic. I gathered the gifts I had purchased and placed them in my closet. Perhaps some would still be distributed one day, to those who showed genuine remorse and a commitment to change. Others might be donated or repurposed. Like so many things in my life right now, their fate remained undecided. As I finally lay down to sleep around 4 a.m., anxiety about the coming confrontation briefly surfaced. What would I say when they inevitably called? How would I handle the backlash? Had I just permanently damaged my relationship with every member of my family? But these concerns were quickly overshadowed by a growing sense of self-respect. I had drawn a line, finally, and whatever came next, I would face it with the knowledge that I had stood up for myself in a situation where I was being blatantly exploited. I fell asleep with a sense of peace I hadn't expected to find on this night of all nights. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for now, I had reclaimed a piece of myself that I hadn't even realized was missing. Despite my exhaustion, I woke up shortly after midnight. The quiet of my apartment felt oppressive now rather than peaceful. I knew what I needed to do, but the finality of the action still gave me pause. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop, the screen illuminating my otherwise dark living room. I navigated to the resort's website and logged into my account, where all the reservation details were stored. The booking summary appeared on screen. 5 luxury cabins for 7 nights, December 22 to December 29. Accommodations for 17 guests. Total cost, $21,000. Amount paid by me, $16,800. Amount paid by family, $4,200. I had spent months looking forward to this trip, imagining cozy evenings by the fireplace, group ski lessons for the beginners, gourmet meals in the main lodge, and the joy of watching my nieces and nephews open their gifts on Christmas morning. Now those imagined scenes were tainted by the knowledge that my family had planned to enjoy 3 days of these experiences without me, while still expecting me to fund them. My cursor hovered over the red cancel reservation button. A wave of second thoughts washed over me. Was I overreacting? Would this decision permanently damage my relationship with my entire family? What if this was all somehow a misunderstanding? I reopened the screenshots I had taken of the group chat messages, needing to remind myself that this was no misunderstanding. The words were clear and unambiguous. As long as he pays his part, does it matter if he's there the whole time? We need to keep the golden goose happy enough to keep paying. He's still covering the $16,800 for the reservation, so let's make sure he doesn't have any reason to change his mind. The disrespect and manipulation were undeniable. This wasn't about a family wanting to spend time together differently than I had envisioned. This was about people deliberately deceiving me while expecting me to finance their holiday. With newfound resolve, I clicked the cancellation button. A dialog box appeared. Are you sure you want to cancel your reservation? This action cannot be undone. I took a deep breath and clicked, yes, cancel my reservation. Another screen appeared, asking for the reason for cancellation. I selected Other from the drop-down menu and briefly typed, Family emergency, requiring change of plans. It wasn't entirely untrue. This was indeed a family emergency of sorts, just not the kind they were expecting. I submitted the form and received an immediate confirmation email stating that my cancellation had been processed and my credit card would be refunded, the full amount of $16,800 within 3 to 5 business days. The moment the confirmation appeared in my inbox, I felt an unexpected flood of emotions. Relief was the most prominent, followed closely by a liberating sense of having reclaimed my autonomy. There was guilt there too, an ingrained response to putting my own needs above family expectations, but it was overshadowed by the righteousness of my decision. For 6 years, I had been the family financial safety net, the reliable one who would step in whenever money was needed. I had never asked for anything in return except inclusion and appreciation. The screenshots on my phone proved I hadn't even received that much. With the cancellation complete, I turned my attention to my own holiday plans. The flight to Maui I had booked departed at 7 p.m. the following evening. I had always wanted to spend Christmas on a beach, watching waves instead of snow, trading hot chocolate for tropical drinks with little umbrellas. Now I would have that opportunity. I decided to set aside $10,000 of the refunded money for my trip. I would stay at a nice resort, book a few excursions, and treat myself to good meals. After years of funding everyone else's enjoyment, I deserved to invest in my own. Another $5,000 would go to the Alzheimer's Association donation I had already initiated in honor of my grandfather. He had always emphasized the importance of family, but I knew he would be appalled by how mine had treated me. This felt like a way to honor his values rather than the corrupted version my family now practiced. The remaining $1,800 I would keep in savings, a small buffer against future emergencies. I was done being the family bank, but I wasn't done being financially responsible for myself. With these decisions made, I set up an automated email response and turned off notifications from family on all platforms. The email would simply state that I was taking some time away from communication and would respond when I returned from my trip. I wasn't ghosting them entirely, just creating space to process everything without their immediate influence. It was now nearly 2 a.m. My family was planning to gather at Uncle Bill's house at 5 a.m. for their real departure, the one I wasn't supposed to know about. In just 3 hours, they would begin their journey to a resort where no reservation awaited them. Part of me wanted to stay awake, imagining their reactions in real time, the shock when they arrived at check-in, the panic as they realized what had happened, the frantic calls they would undoubtedly make to me. But that would be giving them more of my energy than they deserved right now. Instead, I powered down my phone completely, something I rarely did. The silence was immediate and complete. No email notifications, no message alerts, no social media pings. Just the quiet hum of my apartment's heating system and the distant sounds of the city outside. I turned out all the lights and returned to bed. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I wasn't thinking about vacation logistics or family dynamics or how to make everyone happy. I was thinking only about myself, my needs, my well-being. It felt foreign, but necessary. As I drifted off to sleep, I wondered what tomorrow would bring. Anger, certainly. Accusations, without doubt. Perhaps even genuine regret from some family members. Whatever came, I would face it from a position of reclaimed self-respect rather than continued exploitation. My last thought before falling asleep was simple but profound. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to establish them clearly and firmly, even when it's painful. I slept more soundly than I had in months. The persistent vibration of my phone pulled me from a deep sleep. I had powered it back on before going to bed, knowing I would need to face the consequences of my actions eventually. I reached for it groggily, checking the time first. 6:30 a.m. The notification screen was completely filled. 55 missed calls in just over an hour. 12 from my mother, 9 from my father, 14 from my sister Amanda, 8 from my brother James, 5 from Michael, and the rest distributed among various aunts, uncles, and cousins. The text messages and voicemails were even more numerous, following a clear emotional progression as the situation unfolded. The first wave came around 3:30 p.m., when they would have arrived at the resort. "Mom, David, there seems to be some confusion with the reservation. Can you call the resort right away?" "Dad, son, we're at the check-in desk, and they're saying there's no reservation under your name. Call as soon as possible." "Amanda, what's going on with the booking? The resort has no record of it." The second wave hit about 20 minutes later as the truth began to dawn on them. "James, did you cancel the reservation? Call me now." "Mom, David, please tell me you didn't cancel everything. The resort is fully booked, and we're all standing here with nowhere to go." "Aunt Melissa, I don't know what misunderstanding has happened, but we need you to fix this immediately." The third wave, arriving around 4:15 p.m., revealed the full realization and panic. "Dad, they're saying you canceled everything this morning. What the hell are you doing? We drove 4 hours to get here." "Amanda, the kids are crying. We have no place to stay. How could you do this?" "Uncle Rick, fix this right now, or don't bother coming to any family events ever again." I scrolled through the voicemails, listening to selected ones that captured the escalating crisis. My father's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. "David, I don't know what game you're playing, but this is completely unacceptable. We're standing in the lobby with all our luggage, and nowhere to go. Everything in the area is booked solid. Call me back immediately." My sister vacillated between anger and pleading. "I can't believe you would do this to us." To the kids, "It was just a stupid joke about leaving early. We were going to wait for you if you had asked. Please, call the resort and fix this." My cousin Sarah's message was the first to show a glimmer of understanding. "David, I think I understand what happened. You saw the group chat, didn't you? Look, it was wrong. We were wrong. But can we talk about this? Everyone's stranded here." My brother James moved quickly from shock to threats. "If you don't fix this in the next hour, I swear to God, David, we're done. Do you hear me? Done. No more brother, no more family, nothing." My mother's messages started with confusion, moved to anger, then settled into emotional manipulation. "How could you do this to your family? To me? After everything we've done for you? This is how you repay us? By ruining Christmas for everyone?" I noticed that my brother Michael had called 5 times, but left only one very brief message. "I get it. Call me when you're ready." The most interesting voicemail came from my Uncle Bill around 5:30 p.m. "David, look, we clearly made a mistake. I'm authorized by the family to offer an apology if you'll call the resort and reinstate the reservation. We can work out the details of who said what later. Right now, we just need a place to stay. An apology offered as a transaction. Fix the problem we created, and we'll consider saying sorry." It perfectly encapsulated the dysfunction I had been enabling for years. The messages continued through the evening and into early morning, growing increasingly desperate as they failed to find alternative accommodations. December 22nd was one of the busiest check-in days of the holiday season, and everything within a 50-mile radius was fully booked. The final text I saw before putting my phone down came from my cousin Alex at 6:15 a.m. "We're all driving to your apartment. Be there in about 3 hours. You better be ready to explain yourself." I took a deep breath and composed a single message to be sent to the family group chat, the one that had included me. I saw the Christmas trip, real planning, chat, all of it. The plans to leave without me. The jokes at my expense. The discussion about me being the golden goose you needed to keep paying while minimizing my actual presence. "Enjoy your David free vacation. It's completely free of my presence and my money now." I hit send and immediately received a flurry of responses. "David, it wasn't like that. It was just a joke that went too far. You're completely overreacting. How could you do this to the whole family over a stupid chat?" I turned notifications off again, not ready for their attempts at gaslighting and damage control. Instead, I made coffee and began packing for Hawaii. My flight wasn't until that evening, but I needed to be out of my apartment before the family caravan arrived. I had no interest in facing 17 angry relatives in person. After finishing my packing, I called the one person who had seemed to understand, my brother Michael. "Hey," he answered on the first ring. "You okay? Been better. Are you with them?" "No," he said. "I drove separately and got a hotel room about 20 miles from the resort last night. Couldn't stomach the group hysteria." "They're coming here," I told him. "To my apartment. I know. I'm not part of that plan either. He paused. I should have warned you about what they were doing. I'm sorry, David. I knew it was wrong, but I went along with it anyway. His apology sounded genuine, unlike Uncle Bill's conditional offer. Why did you go along with it, I asked. Michael sighed. Same reason I go along with everything in this family. It's easier than standing up to them. But watching everyone panic and blame you instead of taking responsibility yesterday, it made me realize how toxic things have gotten, especially with how everyone treats you. We talked for another 30 minutes. He explained that the early departure plan had started as a casual suggestion from Aunt Melissa, who complained that my enthusiasm for family activities sometimes felt overwhelming. It had evolved from there into an elaborate scheme, with each person adding their own justification for excluding me while keeping me on the financial hook. Not everyone was equally into it, Michael clarified. But nobody except me raised any real objections, and even I didn't try very hard to stop it. Before ending the call, I told him about my Hawaii plans. Good for you, he said. Send me a beach photo on Christmas. I'll be having a microwave dinner in my apartment and thinking about the choices I've made. You could come to Hawaii, I offered impulsively. Thanks, but I think we both need some space to figure things out. Rain check on the brother trip? Definitely. By 9 a.m., I had checked into a hotel near the airport. I sent a text to my landlord warning him that some of my family members might show up, but that I wasn't available. Then I settled in to wait for my evening flight, occasionally checking my phone for updates. Around noon, the expected text arrived from my sister. We're at your apartment. Where are you? We need to talk about this face to face. I didn't respond. My father. This is childish, David. Running away instead of facing us. I raised you better than this. I blocked that one. My mother. Please, sweetheart. Let's just talk about this. We love you. We made a mistake. That one hurt, but I still wasn't ready. Throughout the day, the messages continued, alternating between anger, guilt-tripping, and occasional glimpses of genuine remorse. I responded to none of them, focusing instead on researching activities for my Hawaiian getaway. At 5:30 p.m., I headed to the airport, my phone now silent in airplane mode. As I boarded the flight that would take me 3,000 miles away from my family drama, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Sadness for the relationships that might never be the same. Anger at the betrayal that had precipitated everything. But primarily, I felt relief. For the first time in years, I was putting myself first, setting boundaries, refusing to be used. It was uncomfortable and liberating in equal measure. As the plane took off, I looked out at the darkening Boston skyline and made a silent promise to myself. I would never again confuse financial generosity with love. Never again allow my worth to be measured by what I could provide rather than who I was. And never again enable disrespect in the name of family harmony. The real work of rebuilding or releasing these relationships would come later. For now, I had a date with a Hawaiian sunset and 7 days of peaceful solitude. 1 week later, I sat on a pristine beach in Maui, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. My Hawaiian vacation had been everything I needed. Peaceful, restorative, and completely on my own terms. I had hiked volcanic trails, learned to surf, enjoyed local cuisine, and spent hours simply sitting by the ocean, processing everything that had happened. Today was my last full day in paradise before returning to reality, and it seemed like an appropriate time to finally address the fallout from my family situation. I pulled out my phone and, for the first time since arriving on the island, turned off airplane mode. The flood of notifications was immediate but less overwhelming than I had anticipated. Most of my family members had given up trying to contact me after the first 48 hours, apparently accepting that I wasn't going to engage until I was ready. I sorted through the messages methodically, categorizing them by approach and sincerity. My father's communications had followed a predictable pattern: initial rage, followed by stern disapproval, culminating in a demand that I grow up and fix this. His final message, sent 3 days ago, read, "When you're done with this tantrum, we expect a full apology for ruining the family Christmas. Your mother has been crying for days." My mother's messages were primarily emotional appeals, heavy with guilt and occasional biblical references about forgiveness. "Family should always come first," she wrote. "No matter what mistakes were made, cutting us off like this is not the answer. Please come home so we can work this out." My sister Amanda's communication showed the most evolution. Her initial texts were angry and accusatory, but by day 3, her tone had shifted dramatically. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened and how we've been treating you." The group chat was inexcusable, and my participation in it was even worse. "I've relied on you financially so many times without showing proper gratitude. The trip plan was cruel, and I'm genuinely sorry for hurting you. I understand if you need space, but I hope eventually you'll let me apologize properly and work to rebuild your trust." My brother James remained bitter and unrepentant. "Hope you're enjoying your selfish vacation while the rest of us had the worst Christmas ever. Real mature, David." My brother Michael had sent just one text. "Hope you're finding some peace. When you're ready to talk, I'm here. No pressure, no judgment." The extended family responses varied widely. Uncle Bill and Aunt Melissa remained indignant, suggesting that my reaction was wildly disproportionate to their little joke. Cousin Sarah expressed genuine remorse, similar to Amanda's. Most others fell somewhere in between, acknowledging wrongdoing, while still suggesting I had overreacted. After reviewing everything, I made a decision about how to proceed. I would respond only to those who had offered sincere apologies without qualifications or expectations. That narrowed my immediate communication to just 3 people: Michael, Amanda, and Sarah. I called Michael first. "You're alive," he answered, his tone lighter than I expected. "Very much so." Hawaii agreed with me. "I bet." Meanwhile, Christmas in Boston was a special kind of hell. Everyone pointing fingers, nobody taking responsibility. Mom crying, Dad storming around. The usual family dysfunction, but holiday edition and on steroids. We talked for nearly an hour. He described how the family had scattered after discovering the canceled reservation, some driving back home immediately, others finding scattered accommodations hours away from the resort. Christmas Day had been spent in separate locations, with sporadic attempts at gathering that mostly devolved into arguments about who was to blame for the situation. "The funny thing is," Michael said, "almost no one was willing to admit that treating you like an ATM with legs was the actual problem. They kept focusing on the miscommunication or saying you couldn't take a joke." "And what did you say?" I asked. "That we've all been taking advantage of your generosity for years, and it was bound to blow up eventually." That didn't make me very popular. I felt a surge of appreciation for my youngest brother. "Thank you for that." "Don't thank me. I should have said it years ago." After finishing with Michael, I sent thoughtful text responses to Amanda and Sarah, acknowledging their apologies and suggesting we talk more once I returned home. Both responded immediately, with relief and gratitude for the opportunity to make amends. For everyone else, I composed a single email that I would send before flying home tomorrow. "I've spent this week reflecting on our family dynamics and my role in them. The group chat revealed painful truths about how some of you view me, primarily as a source of financial support rather than a family member you actually want to spend time with. Moving forward, I'm establishing new boundaries. I will no longer be funding family vacations or providing financial assistance without clear expectations and genuine appreciation. This isn't about punishing anyone, but about creating healthier relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. I'm open to rebuilding connections with those who understand why their actions were hurtful and who are committed to change. For those who believe I've overreacted or that my financial support comes with no expectation of basic decency, I wish you well, but we'll be taking a break from our relationship. I'll be declining the New Year's family gathering this year. I need more time to process everything. I hope by next Christmas, we can create new traditions based on actually wanting to be together, not on who's paying for what." I saved the draft to send tomorrow before my flight. It was direct but not vindictive, establishing boundaries without burning bridges completely. Those who were capable of growth would respond positively. Those who weren't would show themselves clearly. The next morning, as I prepared to check out of my hotel, I received an unexpected call from Gerald Harper, my grandfather's best friend. I hadn't spoken to him in months. "David, my boy, I heard about what happened with the family trip. I was momentarily taken aback. How did you find out? Your brother Michael called me. Thought I might be able to offer some perspective, given my friendship with your grandfather. Gerald had been like a second grandfather to me growing up. At 82, he remained sharp and insightful. What would Grandpa have thought about all this? I asked, suddenly craving the wisdom of the man who had always emphasized family loyalty. Frank would have been appalled, but not by your actions, Gerald said firmly. He believed in family loyalty, yes, but it was supposed to go both ways. What they did, planning to exclude you while taking your money, that's not family. That's exploitation. His validation brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Your grandfather worked hard all his life and helped his family whenever he could, Gerald continued. But he never let anyone take advantage of him, and he wouldn't want you to either. He'd be proud of you for standing up for yourself. After saying goodbye to Gerald, I sent the email I had drafted to my family members, then boarded my flight home with a sense of closure I hadn't expected to find so soon. Over the next few months, the family landscape shifted dramatically. Some relationships strengthened through honest conversation and new boundaries. Others faded as certain family members proved unwilling to interact with me outside of a financial provider role. My sister Amanda and I began meeting for coffee weekly, rebuilding our relationship from the ground up. My brother Michael and I planned a modest fishing trip for just the two of us in the spring. My cousin Sarah invited me to her baby's christening with a handwritten note, emphasizing that my presence, not presence, was what mattered. My parents were slower to adjust to the new reality, but after 2 months of minimal contact, they invited me to dinner without asking for anything. It was a small step, but a meaningful one. Uncle Rick and Aunt Melissa essentially disappeared from my life when they realized the Bank of David was permanently closed. James maintained his distance, still apparently believing he was the wronged party. As for me, I discovered something unexpected. Generosity feels more genuine when given freely rather than extracted from you. I still helped family members I was close to, but now it was on my terms, with clear boundaries, and only for those who valued our relationship beyond what I could provide financially. The money I had set aside from the canceled trip donation went to the Alzheimer's Association as planned. I even organized a fundraising walk in my grandfather's memory, attended by the family members with whom I was rebuilding relationships. It was a more meaningful tribute than any luxury vacation could have been. Looking back on everything now, the painful betrayal turned out to be a disguised blessing. It forced a necessary reset of unhealthy patterns that might otherwise have continued indefinitely. It showed me who valued me for myself and who saw me primarily as a resource. Most importantly, it taught me that maintaining your self-respect isn't selfish, it's necessary. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took advantage of your generosity? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes, standing up for yourself is the hardest but most important thing you can do. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe for more real-life experiences, and share with someone who might need to hear this message. Thank you for listening, and remember, true family values you for who you are, not what you can provide.